good idea. So I get back in the car, find the auto parts store, get 10 gauge wire, crimpers, ring terminals, all the stuff that I need. And I basically ran a new alternator wire. Again, everybody, just for disclaimer, this is a experimental airplane that I do own at this point. So this is not. So I run a new alternator wire, make a ring terminal, put it on the alternator, run it through the cowling, zip tie it all up, pop it out the cowling along the boot cowl, which is like the side of the fuselage, right? I tape it really good with like automotive body tape.
This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
Welcome back, everybody. It's the 21.5 Show. Max, Dylan, that's all you get this episode.
The show for the pros with just the pros today. Hello, Maxwell.
Hi. Happy Saturday.
Thank you. It is a great Saturday. I'm doing this show, and then I've got to zip off to the airport to hop onto your hometown airline, Southwest. Can't wait. I had a very...
May your journey be on time and filled with smiles
it's
and
supposed
happy
to be.
employees.
That my only bone to pick with Southwest right now is the in-flight Wi-Fi is very slow. Is that like a thing, or is it just like on certain airplanes?
Yes. Now, the Wi-Fi has come a long way.
Okay.
Before, like, we had major issues with, like, half of it being MEL. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
Right? So we've come a long way from there. And now we're slowly upgrading the whole system, all the hardware, like, to the new Ripon. So if you're on, like, a new Max, then, yeah, you'll see the new system. The only way we really know what system it has is, actually, I'm trying to think if the cockpit control is even different. But anyway, yes, there's a new system. It does rip, and it is coming because there was a time too when it was like free Wi-Fi on those equipped airplanes for testing. Like when they first got the new hardware, and I was deadheading, and I happened to be on one. This is before we even got free Wi-Fi, I think, in our contract. So I just logged in. I was like, whoa, and it ripped. It was super fast. I was impressed. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, Dylan. We are really striving at Southwest Airlines to upgrade our passenger experience, as you know.
Yes.
Classes, no, I shouldn't say classes. Premium seating is coming. All the things. Bags are still free.
I love it.
That is my unpaid endorsement from Southwest.
Good.
Well, sort of unpaid. I don't get paid to endorse.
Pretty handsomely paid endorsement.
You know what I mean.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, I made it to like the top level of Southwest status, so I think I get.
I thought you
like,
defected to American.
Well, I do both.
You kind of had a little pouty time when you were upset with our on-time performance or something.
Yeah, there was a time when that was a problem. Now it's better, and so now I have status on both, and I just kind of take what I need from either.
Good for you.
I called you yesterday. I was in the Dallas Love Terminal calling for a meal recommendation from you. I was kind of disappointed that you didn't have like your go-to.
You have to remember, my whole program is to avoid purchasing meals in the airport. That's my whole...
That's your whole move.
Whole mantra, really.
Okay.
And, so I try to not run in airports and run around like a chicken with my head cut off and pay $20 for something that's terrible for you,
Yeah.
Because that's usually the corner you get backed into.
20 would have been a good deal. I ended up going to Jason's Deli. I got a bottle of water and a sandwich, and it was $24.
Good thing you weren't paying for it, huh?
I know. I was like, holy smokes. This is just, yeah. I mean, I remember the days. Like, do you remember at O'Hare when there was a Subway in the O'Hare terminal by the Eagle Gates? Did you ever?
No, but I do remember. I do remember Chili's had like this crew meal. Remember, it was like a turkey sandwich and French fries, and it was like $6 back then.
Yeah,
this is some time ago. But I remember calling on the taxi in and like ordering 2 of the crew meals for me and the captain. I'd go run down there and
quick, get it. Yeah, you had to find the little crew meals. There was one I remember at DFW. It was one of the barbecue places, and they had like a barbecue baked potato, and they'd throw some like ham. I don't remember what meat was on there. And it was like $4. But the amount of like, if you eat a big baked potato, like that's a lot of food.
Very satiating. Yeah, a lot of carbohydrates, but
big carbo load.
Yeah, we didn't care back then about those
back
things.
then it was because what were we probably
remember
getting
the burrito beach in O'Hare?
Oh, yeah. You had the stamp card.
That's right, the stamp card. And I still remember, dude, the Chicago music in there that always play. Oh God, what a day! That was miserable. Anyway.
Well, if you were wondering if this podcast is by professional pilots, I think we just shared our street cred there.
Or when you're a regional pilot, this is the best. I'd run all the way down to the United terminal and sneak into the employee cafeteria they had over there. You remember that? It was like a 20-minute, jog.
You'd have to hustle down that. Yeah, it was a long way.
I remember trying to commute on that, and like literally, I wonder how many miles I put on that suitcase at a full run,
full speed,
full run. I had no shame. I could care less. Full uniform.
Well, we're doing
full sprint.
Just going.
Zero given.
Well, we're doing a good job of setting up some segments that are going to be on this show. Wi-Fi and luggage, both prominent topics here coming up. So I'll start off with a little. This is just a teaser, and then we'll get into some other things. Speaking of upgrading the Wi-Fi, I have just purchased the Starlink Mini, and I'm going to attempt to use it in the airplane. So I will report back. There's some people online that have said they've found some success using the Starlink Mini in the plane, like throwing it up on the dash in the cockpit.
I've heard good things, so we'll see. I know it's a big thing. Like now at the backcountry flying, people will put a Starlink Mini in the plane, like especially in like a Cub or type airplane that has a skylight. They'll put it up there, and then you have one of those big inverter or big battery, like a lithium battery, like we have.
Yeah,
and you hook it to that. And then you run a USB-C cable to your USB charging outlet. So anytime the plane's running, it's charging the battery. And then when you shut down, it's still powered. And so, enables you to communicate without having to do like the Garmin and Reach, or you can do satellite texting now too, on your phone. But it's not as, if you've tried to do it, you got to rotate around and point your phone at the satellite. It's not as easy as.
I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, you can do that in flight. I've done that in the 280.
Oh, yeah. Somehow you guys don't have Wi-Fi. I forgot. Okay. All right. So good. Thank you for setting us up so I'll report back on Starlink, let you guys know what happens. But could be an interesting option for some folks if it works. Now let's get back to the satellite texting, communicating, and backcountry that you just mentioned, Max. Would you like to fill people in on your recent adventure bringing the Carbon Cub back to Phoenix? Which first I'd like to shout out a bunch of our listeners. A surprising amount of listeners wrote in asking if they could be a safety pilot on this journey.
Asking if they could come back. And it was actually while I was in flight that those emails were coming in, right? Remember?
It was hilarious.
I was texting with you.
Yeah. So shout out to everybody. Love the thinking outside the box.
Great
Build
thinking.
a couple hours.
Unfortunately, I was on a ferry permit.
Yeah.
Which
couldn't take any passengers. And maybe you should share why going along on that journey might not have been that fun.
Leverage in this deal to get a good deal was that the airplane, I think, kind of slipped through the cracks with this place that was selling it, and it was out. It just gone out of condition inspection, right? And so they're like trying to find someone or whatever, and I'm like, look, if you take my price, I will take it. I'll still do an inspection, but I will take it out of annual, and if you can help me arrange a ferry permit, because you have to have a mechanic that for a ferry permit that says it's airworthy, right? Just a basic kind of once over. So yeah, it looks good,
right?
So they said they agreed to that, so I took it on a ferry permit, right? So I blast off, and this airplane had a history. It had a couple alternator changes.
Can you use the term blast? I know you love the term blast off, and you use it quite often, but should you maybe think of another term when you're in a 180 horsepower airplane?
Dude, no. Well, I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyway,
okay.
So I leave. And this airplane had a couple of alternator issues, and there was something I knew there was something that they weren't troubleshooting. Like the last guy replaced the alternator recently says, "Oh, ops check good, or voltage 13.3," and I'm like, that is low. Like it's supposed to be at 14.1, right? That's like because it's a integrated voltage regulator. You can't adjust it like some airplane. If people are out there saying, "Oh, you could adjust it," you can't. It's not a BNC with an external voltage regulator. There's a little screw you can change. This is not. It's like an automotive Type 1, internally regulated. You can't do anything. So, I'm like, that is low. Something is like dragging the voltage down. Like, but a airplane, small airplane electrical system is like a 1940 Ford truck. Like, it's very simple. Like, it's not hard to troubleshoot. But it's not the time nor the place. So I'm like, I just need to get home and then I'll figure it out. So first, it's windy, of course. I've flown a Carbon Cub one time, like over 5 years ago. But I'm, hopping this thing. I'm like, well,
we're still going to send it.
How hard could it be? Yeah, we're going to send it.
Yeah.
The insurance didn't require a checkout, so why should I?
Yeah.
So it pulled the runway. It's like 15 knots of wind or whatever, right? And I add the power, and I know it's going to take off fast, but dude, I didn't even have the power like all the way, like maybe 70% up, and the thing comes off the ground. I'm like, oh, I guess we're going flying. So I get the rest of the power, and it's just startling. It's just so much wing on that thing for the size of it. It's just the airplane is like, when you land, when you're on the ground, the airplane is like, and there's wind, it is on the cusp of flying at all times. Like, it's really, that's how I think it gets away from people a lot of times, is that people stop flying the airplane like when they get on the ground, and like, dude, there's no not flying that airplane. Like, even taxiing around in high winds, like, it's just the one wing wants to come off the ground. It's just constantly it wants to fly. And so you just have to be really cognizant of that. And, as soon as you get on the ground, suck the flaps up, and that helps your cause of, keeping you on the ground and things like that. But anyway, so it was startling how quickly it comes off the ground, and it performs great, climbs great. So I, head west and start heading that direction. I fly to Sweetwater, Texas, which is just west of Abilene, like a little teeny airport. Gas is cheap, easy to get in and out of, right on the way. So I duck in there. And I was watching the electrical system on the way, and it's just the ammeter. It was charging a little bit, and then it was like 0 for most of the flight, which is strange because you should have like a couple amps of charge generally. And I'm like, God, I wonder. It's at 13 something volts. I have a lead acid battery in there that they had changed out, and so I land, get gas, hop in the airplane, go to start it, and the prop just like one blade and stop, like barely turn it over. And I'm like, so it's not charging the battery. And I'm like, no, I'm in Sweetwater, Texas. But it did have an EarthX battery previously, and they're like, oh, this is not the right battery because it's not charging at a high enough voltage. Well, I'm like, yeah, of course it's not, because there's a problem. But they like somehow thought it was the battery, so they put a lead acid. So I get this EarthX out that I had a charger with it, and it was charged. I put that in real quick, and it's under the seat in the Cub, fortunately, so you don't have to take the cowl off. No, okay. And so I put that in, fires right up, I blast off, and I'm like, okay. So I start heading, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is not, it's not charging. Like, this is the airplane has electronic ignition. That's a very important part of the story, right? So you do need power for the engine to run. Now, that being said, there's a dedicated backup ignition battery. So if your alternator dies, you run out of ship's battery, you flip a switch, it does go to a dedicated battery that will run the electronic ignition for a while until you can.
How long? Like 15 minutes?
No, like 30, 45.
Okay.
And you can monitor the voltage of it, so you would see it only runs one. It's the thing. But so anyway, I'm texting with my friend Sean because he has a lot of experience with EarthX batteries. Like, no, dude, that thing has internal battery regulation system. To prevent damaging itself, it will shut itself off.
Oh, so you can't it's not like a lead acid.
12.9 volts. No, you can't just run it all the way till in the like avionics, those things will run, and the ignition system will run down to like 8 volts, like super low voltage, right? But this thing's gonna just shut off, and I'm like, great. So I beeline it for Midland, Odessa. I'm like, I need to go to a city that has stuff, right? And so I go to Midland, Odessa. I get in, taxi over to Signature, and I'm like, great. And I need. We have a new baby at home. I'm like, I told my wife, I'll be home the next day, like early afternoon. So now I'm like, so she's like, wait, you're stuck? And I have a trip the following morning, like early. And I'm like, God, dude, I have my Southwest ID. Like, I can get out of there, but then I'm leaving the plane. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm like, I don't even have a multimeter to like figure this out. So anyway, I go get a car. The hotels were like full in Midland too. I couldn't believe it. Or like $350 a night. It was the craziest thing. I don't know. There must have been like an oil and gas symposium or something. But I call the hotel we go to at Southwest. They're like, oh yeah, $100, you're good. Like that, and it's a pretty nice hotel. They just give us a good deal. So I'm like, perfect. So I go there, I get a car, I go to Harbor Freight, I get,
So did you search Harbor Freight when you were like trying to find an airport to divert to? Did you search Harbor Freight? Was that your
but
primary?
I knew Midland would have like at least a Lowe's, a Home Depot, an Ace, something that has like a multimeter, long test leads, some other stuff, right? And so I go there, I get stuff. And by this time it's dark. I get them to put it in a hangar because it's windy. I can't even get the cowl off because it's gonna blow away. And so I'm like, all right, I just need to get some rest. I talked to Sean, who's our buddy, who's super knowledgeable, kind of get a game plan together with him, and help me run through some scenarios and stuff. And I sleep, get up early, get to the airport before the sun's even up, go in the hangar, take everything apart, the cowling, all the cowling off, hook the test leads up to the alternator direct, get in the plane with the multimeter on my lap, fire it up. Alternator is putting out 14.1 volts, just like it should. So I'm like, okay, so there's a problem between the alternator and where the alternator connects to the electrical system, which is in like the main bus bar, right? Via a circuit breaker. So I'm like, there's just a wire that goes there, but like there's a capacitor under there. So there's a couple of things. I'm like, all right, I have a good alternator and I really don't have the time to fully troubleshoot this system. And even then I don't really have the access to replacement parts readily available. I'm like, so how can we get this going? So I talked to Sean, he's like, and we talked about it and he's like, just bypass the whole thing. I'm like, that's a good idea. So I get back in the car, find the auto parts store, get 10 gauge wire, crimpers, ring terminals, all the stuff that I need. And I basically ran a new alternator wire. Again, everybody, just for disclaimer, this is a experimental airplane that I do own at this point. So this is not. So I run a new alternator wire, make a ring terminal, put it on the alternator, run it through the cowling, zip tie it all up, run it, pop it out the cowling along the boot cowl, which is like the side of the fuselage, right? I tape it really good with like automotive body tape, and into the cockpit, down under my seat, and then a ring terminal onto the battery. I'm like, okay, perfect. So pull the airplane back out, have, fire it up. Sure enough, voltage goes right to 14.1 on the avionics for the system, right? This is what I want to see. So I'm like, great. Put it back in the hangar, cowl it all up, get all my stuff, blah, blah, and blast off, and stopped, a bunch of times and about every 2 to 2.5 hours. And of course there's like a 20 knot headwind, no matter what I did. And so I'm just trucking along and made it back, like literally landed like right at like sunset or a little past. It's never a dull moment. I told you this aviation is a terrible hobby.
Oh,
but,
man. I'm just like following along. It was so funny. At one point I was talking with Sean and I was like, oh, have you talked to Max yet? He sent me a screenshot of his call log and it's like missed call from Max call.
Well, it's
FaceTime
good, dude.
with Max.
It's good to have somebody else
calls.
that, Sean has better technical knowledge than me. And I feel like I'm pretty good, compared to the general population but he's like next level. But it's always good too when you're kind of flustered, you're in a hurry, you're trying not to rush, to just be like, hey, just run through this with me real quick and just make sure I'm tracking, like, and just have somebody else that's not in the mix to bounce stuff off of and kind of run through what I did and just stuff like that. So in my troubleshooting steps, just to make sure I'm not missing something, So anyway, it worked out, got home, and then it was relative. I've already fixed it. It was like relatively simple. It was a bad capacitor. That would have been the first step in my troubleshooting process, but you can't go down that road not knowing, where it's going to end in that situation. But anyway,
you made it home.
We made it.
You resisted get there-itis, just pressing forward. You stopped. You did the right thing.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, whatever.
Good job. Now you have all sort of new problems with some crimp or some missing bolt, or I can't remember.
No. So then we do the condition inspection, and everything comes out really good. It's a good airplane, very clean. Yeah. But there's airbox, right? Little flapper, carb heat, and whatever, and it's like the bushing is worn. The shaft.
No, save that. Well, that'll be for next. That's for next episode. We've covered enough ground today.
All right. Enough general
don't wanna
aviation
run-
talk for today.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't want to run out of
Yeah.
Carbon Cub.
Yeah, well,
content here.
don't worry. I don't think
Yeah, there's
I
going to be
think the-
plenty.
the
Believe me.
Carbon Cub is going to provide a lot of
Yeah.
content here for the show.
Yeah.
After
All
roll.
right. Well, congratulations. You made it home. And can't wait to go flying in that thing once you get all the bugs worked out.
Me too.
Couple of shout outs I wanted to give Max. Yesterday at Dallas Love, I was leaving the Business Jet Center and I had my Paradox bag with the 21.5 logo on it. And I was cruising out and a guy stopped me. He's like, dude, that's a sweet sticker you got on the bag. I was like, oh, this like actually lasered on here. And he goes, where can I get some stickers? And I was like, oh, right here. And I like had him in my backpack, gave it to him. And it turns out he was a fan of the show and had worked with James O'Neill. And so it was cool. Cool. Always fun to run into folks on the road that know what we're doing.
It's great.
So, yeah. So that was kind of a fun encounter. One other shout out. I participated in a little bit, and so did you. The AZBA had an incredible like golf weekend or their annual golf thing this week. I went to I could help out planning the golf tournament, so I was at the hangar reception for all the scholarship recipients. They did this video. Your partner in crime, Christian, was involved in creating the video. Douglas, our buddy, and then Sean Leppert, I think, who a lot of you know and follow on social media, Lep Aviation. They made this unbelievable video. Did you hear about this thing? Did Christian tell you about this?
No, I think he might have mentioned it a while ago.
I
but
hope they
totally
post it online.
not
I
on
want to
my
share
radar.
it. It starts off legit with Jim Nance, who is like the voice of golf, the Masters broadcaster, giving a message to everybody about the AZBAA and scholarships. And I'm like, whoa! It was like in his backyard at Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
It was
You
incredible.
want to hear where that came from? This is pretty
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh, you know
Go
about
ahead.
this?
Tell this story because this is good.
Okay, so one of my first corporate flying jobs, I flew for Hale Irwin, who is a professional golfer. He was really dominant on the Champions Tour, which is like what the Seniors Tour is called now.
Yep.
Or then, whatever it still is. And so I flew for him during that era, and his grandson, who was like a kid at that time,
Yeah.
would fly with us, and so he's in. How is he connected to the? Is he a pilot?
I think he was in the scholarship program.
Yeah,
or,
something. He's connected, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my grandfather's Hale Irwin. He knows Jim Nance." And so Hale just called Jim Nance, like, "Hey, can you help my grandson out and record a quick video for the whatever?" And the guy's like, "Sure." So,
and dude, it was unbelievable. Like, it wasn't just like him holding a cell phone selfie, like cheap cameo video. Like, he had a whole thing set up. It was unreal. So, shout out to AZBA.
oh, it was so good too. This golf tournament was the best one yet. Like it was really well put together, and they had like Masters, like one piece jumpsuits for everybody working there. It was so good, and then it just poured.
It just rained.
Rain. I mean, it was cold and just rough.
But you were out there for a little while.
Yeah.
Thank you for supporting the kids.
Yeah. It was awesome.
So one of our favorite events every year. One year, I can't believe they let us do this, and we haven't been able to do it since. Max and I at a golf hole, they let us set up with our mics and stuff, broadcasting, and we just heckled golfers for about 5 hours straight.
Well, we drank a lot of beers, and
We drank a lot. It
got
was so
pretty
fun.
aggressive. I think that's why
It
we
was
haven't been invited
hilarious.
back.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, and no wonder we didn't come back, but we had a great time.
Yeah.
So, anyways, shout out to AZBA and all the money they're giving away for business aviation scholarships. azba.org if you want to apply for a scholarship if you're in business aviation. Don't have to be a pilot, maintenance, everything. Okay, next thing, onto the book club.
Yes.
Chapter 18,
The
London
book
Calling.
that will never end.
This book, we're on the second. This is the second to last chapter.
You said that 2 chapters ago.
I know.
This was the demise of Pan Am. Very sad to me. But again, one of a very long list of companies that had failed to adapt. It didn't really go into this in Hard Landings, but like I said, I just read Sky Gods recently too.
Yep.
And, Pan Am was just very international centric airline. It always had been, and they failed to develop a domestic feed to their international airline, which made things very difficult in the end. And that was, I think, ultimately what kind of led to their demise, really, and a lot of other things too. But they failed to adapt. And this was it. This sad day when and then other things. The kind of nail in the coffin was they were the unfortunate victim of that terrorism, that Libyan bomb plot over Lockerbie, Scotland, and that just their bookings just dropped off after that. And then the Gulf War started, and then everyone was afraid of terrorism again, and then which was even worse for Pan Am, and that was it. Sold off the pieces, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, the chapter starts kind of talking about London and how it was sort of like the key international hub at the time, where if you needed to get anywhere in the world, basically you get to Heathrow, connect off to your final destination, British Airways.
Really, kind of still is, right?
Yeah. Well, no, okay, that you bring up an interesting question that I had. So it still is, but guess who's made a lot of ground there? All of the Middle Eastern carriers. Because I would say now Emirates, Qatar, Etihad, those three have basically, I think that like a lot of people maybe now don't connect through Heathrow anymore.
I think the difference was back then you didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah,
that was the gateway to the world.
That was it.
Now
there's some
you can
options.
still get everywhere if you get to Heathrow, but you have other options.
There are other options.
Yeah.
But back in the day, there weren't those competitors.
Well,
that was
plus
it.
Plus you had a lot more range limited airplanes and stuff back then too.
Exactly. So yeah, back in the day, that was it. So really interesting. The first part of the chapter is kind of talking about the dynamics of the slots in Heathrow and the politics involved. And basically, only TWA and Pan Am were the only U.S. carriers that had slots. And so United and American were trying different ways to get those slots, but the language in the rules said basically it has to be it's TWA or its corporate successor, whatever that meant. And so they were trying to argue, could we just buy the slots? Do we have to buy the whole company? And so it was really fascinating to learn about like how a very specific market, there's just so many different elements at stake, including like U.S. State Department people trying to negotiate it. Richard Branson's trying to get slots, and they're all fighting over a very finite resource, right? Because there's only 2 runways in London that it was saying, and so there's only a certain amount of slots, and the value. I mean, they were saying back then, this was like late 80s, early 90s, 400 million just for those slots.
Yeah.
So what is that today? I mean, that's
it was
billions.
a very limited amount of slots for only two U.S. carriers. Period. That was it.
So pretty interesting, but sort of the one of the last, I would say, when this whole book is basically about regulation and how the regulation died in the industry. That was sort of like the last area where I think regulation was in effect because of the scarcity there. And so basically the British government was like, well, wait a minute here. Like, we need to look at all these slots and figure out what's going on. And then they ended up kind of doing a review and then giving some more out. And it was just a really fascinating look at that dynamics of one of the most important airports in the world.
Yes.
And then the second half of the chapter, kind of like you mentioned, focused on Pan Am, its demise. I want to give a quick shout out right now to listener Paul, who emailed us and said, "Hey, I want to send you this poster of the all of the airline mergers mapped out. It's called The Genealogy of U.S. Airlines.
So
I'll have
cool.
a link in the show notes.
Where do you even get that? Do you know?
Historyshots.com.
History shots.
Yep. So Paul Pablo, who's a retired American Airlines captain, he was the one who sent it to us. Really appreciate it. I'm actually just ordered a frame for it, so I'm going to have it. I've got a couple videos and pictures I'll post on social media.
Just keeping that? Is that
correct?
You're just going to frame that up and just keep it at your house?
Well, he emailed it to our main account and asked for our mailing address, and you didn't reply, and I replied with my mailing address. So yes, I guess that means I got to keep it. So anyways, shout out to Pablo. Love this thing. It is super cool. And you, by the way, I bought you a really cool Pan Am shirt, so I feel like we each get a little bit. I love it. Oh, my other favorite thing in the chapter, and I was going to ask you if this was in Sky God, says I didn't realize people referred to Pan Am as the blue meatball.
That was not in Sky Gods. That was a new one to me too.
Yeah, so kind of like that one. Who's going to eat the big blue meatball? That was sort of the thing. Oh, one other thing, and this was I mentioned in the book, and I'm forgetting the name. It was the Conquistadores de Cielo or something like that. The meeting of all of the airline executives.
That sounds like a blast.
I know. I was just going to say, did you know anything about this? Yeah. Everyone getting together.
The week after Memorial Day, every year, all of the airline executives would go to this ranch, and they would like shoot shotguns and ride horses and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I guess, ink big deals.
Is that legal? The Conquerors of the Sky is what that means.
I don't think
it's a secretive group.
I don't think that. I wonder if they still do that.
I'm searching perplexity right now. Despite its secretive nature, Conquistadores del Cielo remains and active as a nonprofit organization. As of 2013, David Barger, former CEO of JetBlue, served as chairman with Gary Kelly as president. The organization recorded over $1.2 million in revenue in 2015. Annual gatherings continue to take place at an undisclosed location. At undisclosed locations across the U.S., maintaining its mystique. I mean, I feel like this is a whole show in itself.
I think we need to
penetrate
this secretive society.
That would be amazing.
Continues to hold annual galleries in September. Wait, ChatGPT is saying in September of 2022, it convened at the A Ranch in Wyoming, which is where they did in the book.
Yeah.
Maintaining their tradition of bringing together leaders from the aerospace industry for recreational and social activities.
Oh, wait, here's another thing. The U.S. SEC intervened in the past due to concerns about violations of business ethics rules within the group. This led to claims that the organization was disbanded. However, reports suggested that informal gatherings still occur. So this kind of reminds me of the Bohemian Grove. You know where that is by Santa Rosa?
No. What is that?
Am I saying that? That's the right name. I can't. Anyways. Bohemian Club. I can't remember what the name of it is. I've been to it before. The Bohemian Club. Yeah, my buddies had like a wedding reception there. It was crazy. The Bohemian Club, and then they have like this grove out in Anyways, we can go into conspiracy theories all day. Anyways, we need to get into that Conquistadores de Cielo. That's amazing. Somebody tell us something about that. Maybe somebody knows someone who's in it. Yeah, who's somebody somewhere. Okay, that's going to do it for Book Club. Chapter 18, almost done. Thanks for sticking with us.
What's next? What are we going to read next? Something real quick?
Something
Atlas
super quick.
Shrugged, perhaps?
Yeah, just a quick light
War and
read.
Peace?
Yeah.
What do you want to
Dante's
tackle?
Inferno, maybe we'll go through. I don't know.
The last
the
episode
Odyssey.
of the show. That's how we know when the show gets to the end is, we finished the Iliad.
Yeah. Iliad Odyssey wrap-up show. It'll be great. Oh, God. Can you imagine? Wait, like, are your kids going to have to read that soon in school? Your kids you've got a high schooler now. Like, are they still doing that?
I don't know. He's reading Shakespeare. I bought that recently. What else? I wonder if he's going to have to read Catcher in the Rye. I remember reading that in high school and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I really enjoyed those.
Some of those are still good, yeah. It's just Odyssey is just so
Old
thick.
Holden
That's
Caulfield.
like eating dry oatmeal.
Yeah, some of them are rough, dude. I mean, I remember Romeo and Juliet was pretty tough when you're in high school.
Yeah.
But
yeah. With all the tools now, I just feel like how are you going to quiz someone on that?
Well,
with all the online tools.
Again,
available.
the new paradigm shift is not always what you know, it's knowing to ask the right questions now.
Exactly.
That is the new world we live in. But that's another show.
That's another show. Okay, let's keep this train rolling here. Reviews and comments, Max. We're going to shift gears today. Instead of reading our regular podcast reviews, I'm going to jump into all the many, many, many YouTube comments that we have, which we don't often check. The Khaleesi kind of keeps an eye on those conversations, but I figured it was probably worth us addressing some of these because our YouTube channel's actually making some progress, and we've gained more and more subscribers
what happens
recently.
when you post stuff on there,
Yeah, it's amazing when
really
you actually post video on there what
a lot
happens.
of headway.
Yeah. So now we have all these comments, and I forget to log in, so I'm going to read you a few of them. or we can take turns here. But first one, a lot on still luggage reviews, still always getting comments. This person said, my 22 expandable Aurora bag, which is one of the ones we reviewed. He says it lasted 3 months on a corporate 8 and 6 schedule before it started to burst at the seams. Maybe I'm overpacking it, but the same packing list fits in my 22 Stealth non-expandable with room to spare. Interesting. I mean, it's the same burst at the seams. I would assume it's the same like stitching and everything.
Is that the Luggage Works Aurora?
That was the Luggage Works one. Yeah.
Best value.
It's cheaper. Yeah. So maybe that's where they cut some corners because we were blown away on the cost. Interesting. And then another comment says, did you guys ever upgrade the wheels on the Briggs and Riley bag? I was wondering what wheel and spacer combo everyone was using. The answer is yes, I did. I will post the link in the show notes. And yes, the spacers are a problem. I just threw in some extra washers that I had laying around to as spacers to be able to make the bracket work. So the guy that originally sent it to me said he didn't do anything. He just like tightened the screw down and the bracket sort of fit into place. But I was afraid of breaking the plastic, so I didn't do that. But anyways, I'll have the link in the show notes for that, and I posted that on YouTube as well. But yeah, the upgraded wheels like are the big game changer for that bag because it's perfect except for the wheels. You want to read the next one, Max?
I wish you had worn shoes, even socks.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah, me too. But hey, listen.
Yeah, go
I was worried about other things. And then Ted rules, and another. I can't get enough of Ted. People love Ted.
People love Ted.
I love Ted. I bought a car last week in Ted's, like at a place right up the street from Ted's house, which is not close to where you live. And I was like, "Hey, Ted, can you go look at this car for me before I wire the guy money?" just I think it's perfect. But would you mind just giving it the once over? He called me. He's like FaceTime me from this car. He's doing a walk around of a car purchase for me last week. So, old Teddy always can be counted on.
Well, listen, I'm sure any excuse he can have to get out of the house for maybe 30 minutes might be probably looking for. That's amazing. I thought just when I thought I'd seen it all, if someone told you in the span of a week you'd be like hot wiring Carbon Cubs in the middle of West Texas and having Ted doing a pre-purchase vehicle inspection for you in the same week, like,
listen, you never know. You never know that, and yeah, that car purchase just kind of happened out of the blue too. So you just never know what's going to happen, Dylan.
He's a man of action. You're a man of action.
You never
Max.
know.
You never know. You never know. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for the review section there. If you'd like to send us a review on Apple or Spotify, please do it. And then let us know. We'll be happy to send you some free stickers. info@215podcast.com is the email address. Let me know your mailing address. We'll be happy to do that. The reviews always seem to help grow the channel, so we appreciate it. Okay. Mailbag's next, which is, of course, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Aircrew Academy. Aircrewacademy.com is the website where you can check out all of the training programs they have for your corporate flight department. If you were ever a 135 pilot like Max and I were, you know the horror that is the annual 135 recurrent training, online training that you've got to do that has to cover like every single aviation topic ever. There's only one good way to get through it, and it's with Advanced Aircrew Academy. It's interesting. It's written by pilots. It will not bore you. They did a great job of creating engaging content, not like that other company that we will not mention. Aircrewacademy.com. Okay. On to the mailbag. Max, you want to go with the first one?
No, I'm going to go ahead and let you do that one.
Okay.
You put it in here. You have to read it.
All right. Many years ago, you may remember, we got an email from this guy named Anuj who had informed us that we had made it into the top 50 aviation podcasts. Or top 40. I'm sorry. He had emailed us and told us that we were in the top 40 aviation podcasts which we thought was hilarious because there are only like 30 aviation podcasts. And so it was kind of a real head scratcher. So we made it in there by default. He's back. He like 5 years later just sent us a new email. It says, "Hi Dylan, my name is Anuj. I'm the founder of FeedSpot. I would like to personally congratulate you as your podcast has been selected by our panelists as one of the top 50 pilot podcasts on the web." So still think there's less than 50, but we are in the top 50. I also like that he wrote that it has been selected by our panelist.
Wouldn't you have loved to have been in the room for that debate? Well, let's see. I don't know.
Well, no, look, but that's my point. It just says panelist, not it's singular, not plural. So there's just one guy. It's a panel of one. So
panel of
who's
one.
on that panel? I don't know. It's a more exclusive than the Conquistadors de Cielo. There's only one of them.
We should make shirts that say Conquistador de Cielo, like 2007.
That would be unbelievable.
07 at the Wyoming ranch.
We should.
We'll just sell
and
those.
then like find like a ranch, some ranch, and like that would be. We should do that.
Yeah, someone probably just stole that idea.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Oh, that would be hilarious,
That would be
especially
funny,
if you were like someone like if you were ever gonna. You know what?
Oh. Uh-oh, I can hear the wheels turning over there.
We have a friend that flies an airline executive.
We do?
Yeah. I'll have to tell you offline.
A
who it
current
is. You know
airline
who it is.
executive?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We need to make that shirt and give it to him and have him wear it.
All right. Yeah, I got it. I'm with you now. All right. What's next? Hey, guys. A few months ago, you read my flight advice message on the show and gave me some really great things to think about. I appreciated that, and now I thought you might like to get some closure on how things are going for me now. You're right that I wasn't going to get much flight time on reserve at Spirit, like 20 hours a month. You were also wondering if I was considering more things than just the cargo carrier that I mentioned I had applied to. In fact, I was, and I've been considering regionals with a Dulles or Reagan base, which I would have had at least solved the commuting problem. However, I was having a tough time making that work financially. We moved to the expensive area that we live in when I was still working in defense and earning a higher income, so going to the regionals was looking like something that would require significantly downsize. Ultimately, the decision on what direction to go came down to two boxes needing to be checked. One, no commuting so I can have more time at home, and two, similar or better income. Otherwise, going back to the defense work was probably going to make the most sense for me. Your advice on the show, combined with that from some trusted pals, ended up steering me towards a well-known fractional. I interviewed with them, and they made me a job offer with a start date next month, which happens to be shortly after my Spirit furlough takes effect. Honestly, the more I learn about this fractional, the more I think it really lines up well for a pilot my age with the commitments that I have, so I'm really pretty psyched about it. Thanks for doing what you guys do. Hopefully I'll bump into you one of these days, and I can say thanks in person. From a fella who still likes flying.
All right. I forgot to put this one in the mailbag, but this is great. You will recall a couple of episodes ago, Max shared that they were flying and they heard a Honda Jet talking about how the guys had his family in the back, and he was telling that to ATC.
He couldn't descend because of his family.
Yeah, and then we were joking around, and we were kind of giving this guy a hard time. And we're like, well, I hope this guy isn't like a sponsor of the show or whatever. And I think either you or me was like, oh, what if it's the CEO of Advanced Aircrew Academy or something like that? So anyways, we got an email from Dan, who is the Chief Safety Officer at Advanced Aircrew Academy. He says, Dylan and Max, friends don't let friends fly stupid. I can confirm our CEO does not have a Honda Jet. If he did, our industry-leading subject matter experts would not allow someone in the company to make stupid radio calls demonstrating their lack of technical expertise. If you track down the Honda Jet pilot, recommend our ICAO phraseology module, International Procedures North America module for communications in Canada, mandatory frequencies, aerodrome traffic frequencies, and Unicom procedures, and our FAR AIM review module for uncontrolled airport communication procedures. There are all sorts of pro tips like how to properly use the term 1 minute weather with ATC. Cheers. And that's from Dan. That was great.
Pretty funny.
Great email, Dan. Very clever. And of course, we never would accuse any Advanced Aircrew Academy employee of bad phraseology on the radio. It was just a joke. Okay. Next.
I'll read it since this is my recommendation. Gents, thank you for recommending Die With Zero by Bill Perkins on the pod. I just finished it over the course of several layovers, and it's been eye-opening. I'm a legacy airline captain flying domestically, and this book was the push I needed to slow my savings rate and start spending a bit more of our nest egg. Just how much is to be determined during my next quarterly check-in with Tim Pope. Needless to say, I hope to end 2025 or start 26 with an airplane that is definitely not a Murphy Moose or anything with a radial engine. I have a family of 5, so we're looking at a PA-32, a Cherokee 6 Saratoga Lance market. Keep up the good work, and reminder that flexibility is the key to air power, from Matt.
Oh, good.
Good for you, Matt. Spread some of that cheddar.
I love it. Hey, guys, a great episode about the Air National Guard. I spent just shy of 15 years in the Air Force active duty side, and the Guard is 100% the way to go for military flying. For what it's worth, there are RPA pilots in the Guard up in North Dakota and New York, and it's a fantastic deal for the pilots, and that's the drone operations. Right now, I'm an HC-130J pilot, but there are also HH-60s, HC-130s for rescue, as well as an MC-130J Spec Ops out of PA for people who are interested in those routes as well. And that's from Matt.
Awesome. Really like your show. I was a military pilot in F-18s who left flying and went into the corporate business world. After numerous roles and exposure to all sorts of U.S. and international business, I decided to come back to flying in my mid-50s. I continued flying GA in between, so my experience was okay. Always plenty to learn as a professional, and I have nothing but good things to say about my transition and current job flying Part 91 and 135 Gulfstream in the Midwest. Question for you guys, combines aviation and business. Has anyone ever tackled the often received questions on getting the min fuel at an FBO versus paying all the fees and taking on no fuel, so tankering fuel from your home base? I'd like to work on an Excel model that shows what we all assume, that it's better to take the exact min fuel to get the handling discount versus no fuel, but prefer to prove this with numbers. Before I undertake myself, I'm wondering if your show, which allows the geek and all of us to come out, have either tried to create the model or spoken to someone that has a model. And that's from Anon. Yes, those models exist already.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of the contract fuel providers have some of that, and that actually account for, the tankering burn, like how much more you're burning carrying all that gas and stuff. But most of the time, I would say it's pretty easy to figure out with some quick mental math if you know what your home fuel price is, because usually the difference is so drastic that the accounting for the extra fuel burn and stuff is like, it's not even close enough to warrant that.
It's funny because so the main place that I do it is Vegas, Harry Reid International Airport.
It's not.
We always
it not Harry
tanker.
Reid anymore. Oh yeah, it is. No,
It is.
Not
It was McCarran, right? Now it's Harry Reid. It's always cheaper to tanker, but it's so close. It's because I'm just making these numbers up. It's $4 a gallon at the home base, and it's $8 a gallon there. And then so that's a $4 delta. And then you got to buy, 350 gallons. So you do 4 times 350. It ends up being almost to the exact number. It's $1,500 handling fee, or you're going to pay $1,500 extra dollars for the fuel, And so it's this, then you go, well, what's better? To just pay the handling fee or pay for the fuel if it's a wash. But it's funny how close they are to it being almost an exact wash either way on my airplane in most of my situations.
I can't believe you still go there.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother. Nothing like having an hour and a half edict for a 45-minute flight to Vegas.
Oh my gosh. It's
such a
best
racket over there.
It is the best.
I'm taking the 280 to North Vegas this week.
Oh, did you?
I'm going to.
Oh, have you been in there before?
Not in the 280, in the XLS.
I've been in there in the Challenger. It's
small.
It's fine. There's a lot of.
It's really the taxi out when you taxi and then you got to squeeze next to that hangar. That's the part that worries me most. Not the sub 5,000 foot runway. It's the the taxi.
Well, we went in there at night and they're like, okay, this is what I hate. I get it when they're like, oh, keep your base turn inside of the I-205. You're like, oh, okay, great. Just I get it if you're local, you're flight training.
Oh, let me get out the Rand McNally Atlas
yeah,
here.
let me get out the Atlas here real quick and see where the I-205
well, I
is
mean,
while I'm on the
said,
downwind.
Though, you can kind of figure out like
usually, yes, you can usually, but it's just like
would it be better if they just said keep it inside of the freeway?
Yeah. Do you see that freeway at your 12 o'clock? Like, make sure you turn before that.
I mean, to their credit, it's kind of the only freeway that would make sense in a base turn.
It is
scenario,
and but it's just one of those things where it's just one extra thing to think about. We were like, whoa, I guess it's this thing. It's like, or LAX. My favorite is they always call the Harbor Freeway, which is there's like 5 freeways in LA when you cross. Like you would need to know what the Harbor Freeway is, which it's not near a harbor when you fly over it going into LAX. So you better know what that is. Anyways, is that it for the mailbag? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Anything else? Okay. Thanks to Advanced Aircrew Academy, who always uses perfect phraseology on the radio. On to flight advice. Ooh, I think this one's going to be spicy, Max. I think we're going to have some good opinions. This will be good. But before we get to it, we've got to talk about one of our other longtime sponsors, and that's our friends at Harvey Watt, the pinnacle of protection. The defenders of professional pilots around the globe. Protect your family, protect your paycheck. Harvey Watt is the company you go to when you want to make sure to be protected. That loss of medical insurance is so crucial for professional pilots. Without it, you're going to be sidelined and the money's going to stop rolling in. Make sure you are protected. Life insurance is another offering there. I have a great policy with them, almost no exclusions. You can check out all the offerings for professional pilots, harveywatt.com. Okay. You read this one, Max. Lots of thoughts here. Go ahead.
Currently, I am an A320 series airline pilot living in Denver with a forced retirement coming in a few years. I met a former American Airlines captain in Pueblo a couple weeks ago who got a citation type rating on retirement and picks up contract trips whenever he feels like it. It sounds like a great way to keep flying when I retire, with the flexibility to spend our winters in the Gulf Coast of Florida and the rest of the year in Colorado, but still work when I feel like getting out of the house. What can I do now to smooth that transition when the time comes, and what type ratings would work best for that plan?
If you're in business aviation and you hear this, this is going to set you off.
It would be great if it
Trigger
worked
warning.
the way you are describing, but unfortunately, in our experience, that is not how it works. But it's possible. I mean, are there former airline pilots, retired airline pilots around that are flying contract and business jets? Absolutely.
Yep.
There are. But it's not. Let me just focus on this part. The guy who got a citation type rating and picks up contract trips whenever he feels like it. It doesn't work like that. It's the contract trips come whenever the person who's going to be paying you feels like flying. So, and the way that
it's not like OT at the airlines where there's a big, you look
like
at the open time
like,
and you log in and
I don't really have much going on tomorrow. Let's see what I can pick up in open time. Yeah. It's not that plentiful typically. So here's the thing. Can you go buy a type rating and make yourself legally, able to
qualified,
provide contract pilot services on a type of aircraft? Certainly. But the thing that is often overlooked is one, you have to network to get people for your phone to ring, to call you, to ask you to fly. So that's one thing. So before you go out and buy a type rating and, put a post on Facebook, I would first, figure out the airports that are where the business jets are concentrated in your area and go down there, ask around, figure out if there's a need, and that. And then second of all, once you are qualified and you are properly networked, the other thing that happens is people, they don't want to make a million phone calls to find somebody for a trip. So what happens is usually the people that are most likely to say yes and be available, they move to the top of the list and get the call first. So if you are a pain in the ass and you're like, oh no, I'm out of town, I can't do it this time, I can't do it that, kind of like I am, frankly.
Yeah, right.
I'm kind of a pain in the ass because I don't have a lot of
got an alternator problem.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of. I mean, I do when I can, but it's just like a lot of times I'm doing a lot of stuff, so I don't have the greatest availability. Where like Christian's great because who I fly with, he's got, no kids, no wife, one flying job. He's, as I like to tell him, he's a man of leisure.
Yeah.
He's just hanging out. So his availability is good. So they call him because he is a yes man. So if you're not a yes man, you move down that list pretty far, and then pretty soon your phone stops ringing. So, and remember, you're not getting paid until you've dug yourself out of the training cost, right? Which takes quite some time, especially if you're floating an initial on your own. So it may not be as lucrative. It's always better to see if you can get somebody else to pay for your training. But the catch-22 of that is if somebody's going to pay for your training, they want some commitment that you're going to be available. So it's kind of it's a job still.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as easy as I think that the former American captain made it sound to me.
This is the problem in general with the airlines. Because I've heard this a lot when I used to be at the airlines. I'm sure you hear it too. Every airline guy that's thinking about it has somebody that's got some great deal that's doing it. Oh, I have a buddy that, he flies Gulfstreams once a month to Tokyo, and it's the best. They all seem to they know one dude that's got some sweet setup, and they think they're just going to walk into that sweet setup. It's not typically the case. What I want to talk to you about is, we actually had an episode where we interviewed a retired airline pilot who switched to business aviation, and he shared his experience. That would be a great episode to go listen to. It's one of our very first. I think it's number 3.
Was a long time ago.
Really long time ago. But he shares kind of the mindset and the attitude that you have to succeed in business aviation, which is basically you have to be very humble because you're basically starting over in a lot of ways. And he had a great quote. He said, airline pilots bring a lot to the table. Some of it is useful. And that's kind of the case. Like your 15 to 20,000 hours of time in Airbuses and Boeings, there's some things will transfer, but very little of the business aviation game is it's 20% of it is flying the airplane. It's the 80% of the other stuff that really is a lot that you got to learn. So there's that. A couple other things. You're going to find that retired airline pilots that want to be in business aviation are going to come against a stigma. And that stigma is that there's a lot of people perceive that retired airline pilots will go, they'll buy a type rating, and then they'll come into the market, and because they don't have any flight time or connections, they will offer their services at a below market rate. You can imagine
get out of the house.
Oh, just to get out of the house. I just need this for beer money. Oh, just for golf
just
money.
To put gas
my
in
wife
Corvette.
Yeah. So you can imagine what professional pilots, how they receive that on the other side of the fence. It's not very well received. So, there are typically market rates that people charge. That's up to you. You run your own business. You do whatever you want. But imagine if there was somebody in the training center at your airline that was like, I'd love to just pick up some open time on the weekends. I'll do it for half the rate of what the regular line pilots are charging. I just love to get out of the house. It'd be so great to just go pick up a turn every once in a while, and I'll do it for $50 an hour. Like, you can imagine what the regular line pilots would say to people that would do that. So just put yourself in kind of in that perspective. Here's what I will say. If you want to do this, like Max was saying, you got to kind of network with the locals and see what they're in the need of. Here is an area I think there's always a need, and it's a great market that I don't think you're really stepping on the toes of a lot of the business aviation people that are kind of coming up the ranks. It's the big piston or single engine turboprop market. Those places have high insurance minimums. And there are owners in that segment that I think are a little bit. There's not a lot of pilots that want to fly those planes because all the younger guys are trying to get into jets and they're trying to move up the ladder and build their experience.
Yada, yada.
Multi-engine, all this. Flying a Pilatus or something like that would be a great gig.
And the good news is the training is less expensive.
The training is less expensive. You're not going to go, fly across the world.
Dude, I think the best would be kind of like when we were just talking to Tom is like a Vision Jet.
A Vision
become
Jet, a TBM.
Yeah, because
Like-
those guys all need supervised.
They all need help, supervised. Your experience will be good. You can find a and
it's
and
essentially
all,
giving IOE.
yeah,
It-
and you can find a cool cool owner, and you know those guys. Some of those smaller airplanes, dude. Those are the fun trips you want to be on. Like, oh, we just have this cheaper airplane for fishing and skiing and hunting and like, you know, kind of the
We bought the
retirement
Kodiak just
style
'cause
trips.
it's like,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So that's where I would encourage you to go. That's a niche of our market where I think a lot of folks kind of look over, because it's not like for people that are working up their career. You know, you're not getting in their way. You're feeling a need. Your experience will be valued. So that's my advice on that. Any other thoughts, Max?
Nope, I think that's it. Just, tread lightly and I have heard of people that just like sign up for training, and like that should be like number 5 on the list. Like, you got to find, do market research, you got to network yourself, figure out what type is the best, where the need is, all of that.
Yeah.
So, take your time, figure it out if it's something you do. But that being said too, and not to, totally, rain on your parade with being in the Gulf close to Florida and the rest of you in Colorado. I mean, you may be able to do that. You may be able to fly in both places. I mean, the Gulf, South Florida is pretty happening.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on there. Yeah. And honestly, a lot of yeah. So anyways, I'm sure people will have opinions and they will write in and we will have more emails to read on this subject, but just tread lightly. Okay. That's going to do it for flight advice. If you would like to get some flight advice, you can visit our website, 215podcast.com. There is an anonymous form you can fill out. Submit your quandary. There's some stats that you can fill in there that really help us answer most of the questions, usually how much flight time you're getting, where do you live, etc. So always happy to answer your queries to the best of our abilities. And if you don't like it, we'll give you a full refund on the advice. And if you need a pro, we'll have a link in the show notes to James O'Neill at Raven Careers, who is the real expert and can really guide you. If you haven't heard any of our episodes with him, go listen to a couple of those, and you'll see why Raven is our preferred career services vendor. Anything else before we get out of here, Max?
Can I get an update on the commuter vest?
Okay. I do have a couple updates.
We should be making that shirt and put it in our merch store for the conquistadors.
We can. Let's just do it.
All right. Anyway, go ahead.
Lindsay has been, she has the Cricut like vinyl letter cutter, and she made some sick shirts in a tote bag over the weekend, 21.5, and they're like black shirts with like black vinyl. So it's like a stealth. It's super cool.
That is cool.
And anyways, that is our vendor is working on a, that's what they're doing, is they're going to do vinyl lettering, and it's going to be black on black, I believe. So it should be pretty cool, but it's just taking forever. So if this doesn't happen, I found a backup vendor that we can go to. Have you heard of this website, Quince, Quince?
No.
It's pretty cool. So I'm going to check out there, but they have basically the puffy packable vest, which I'm just going to order one for us to test.
Cool.
That's the latest update.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I have one of the Costco vests. Do you want one of those? I've got one I did a video review of those. I bought one for you, I think.
Oh, sure.
One of those too. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's all we got. Okay. Well, that is going to do it for another episode of the 21.5 Show. Thanks for coming along on our journey.
Well, until the next time, Dylan, make sure everybody remembers.
Flexibility is the key to air power.
See you next time.
See ya.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.